Coming up this week on Beyond the Vibe, we're joined by Joanne Shaw Taylor.
I mean, there's no rules in blues, you know, it's all about injecting your own personality into the guitar playing and singing. So there was just a lot more freedom there. So I think for me, that was that sort of pivotal moment of, oh, okay, figured this out. This is absolutely what I want to do. I want to be a cowboy. I want to live in Texas. Right, so I was talking to Joe on Zoom most Friday nights over a bottle of wine, and just said I had this idea for an album. You know, I wanted to do a blues covers album, and he started giving me pointers on it and sending me songs to think about. And so eventually I just asked him if he wanted to produce it. You know, he's been producing albums, and he was already kind of producing this in a way, so it made sense. Actually, that would be fun though. If I think about highlights of my career, would be to go back to those really early days. I think it was the running course I played where 3 people turned up and it was only like a pound in. I was like 14 and my dad made me go around and give them all their pound back and thank them for coming.
The show that cuts deep into the world of music.
My name is Aaron Daly, guitarist in UK band These Wicked Rivers, and I'm here with music videographer and photographer. It's Mr. Ryan Daly.
It is.
Thanks for waiting until my tune finished. I appreciate that.
Oh, of course, we got to.
Otherwise, I'd smash up the house.
I know, and it's my house, so I'm kind of at the mercy here.
The power is fantastic for me to have on my shoulders. So much motivation.
Of course, we have a very big guest this week.
Yeah, it's a good one for the vibe this week.
Yes, we have Joanne Shaw Taylor.
I've been working on that. That's the Joanne Shaw Taylor presentation song.
Of course.
It took me 4 days. Maybe liked it. But yeah, really excited to have Jo on the show. And she was really cool as well. You know, it's something that we kind of pride ourselves on the vibe in, that we kind of go between different genres in some regards, you know, different personalities. And obviously today we're going knee deep into the blues, particularly with a new album.
Yes, of course, entitled The Blues Album. It's an interesting one. I was thinking about like blues artists in general, and you know, there's so many kind of iconic blues kind of guitarists and blues singers throughout the years, isn't there? They always carry this kind of real kind of effortlessly coolness about them, don't they?
Yes, well I think in some ways, but a lot of the time there's a structure around blues that can seem very sort of like samey, but I think that's why the iconic blues artists have such a standing in the particularly guitarist world. I think of Stevie Ray Vaughan. And, I mean, like I think Joe mentions it, and a lot of guitarists do. Stevie Ray, you know, one of our favourite, Philip Say's massive Stevie Ray Vaughan fan straight away. You know, because it was just effortlessly cool. You know, and they normally play it like they were born to play it. You know, and it's very cringy.
No, it's true. There's this real kind of like soulfulness in the way they play. A lot of these blues musicians in general, they always kind of it always makes me laugh a little bit as well with the expressions. They're always very expressive players, aren't they?
Good guitar face.
Yeah, they've got the classic guitar face.
The tone. You have to. Well, the blues is about soul and emotion, you know, in connection to music, because of the origins of the blues itself. You know, it really goes back to that. And I always love the fact that, particularly like with Joe Bonamassa, Josh Smith, some fantastic guitar, have both produced her new album. They're both, and Joe, are massively kind of respectful of the blues. They've got their roots in very old blues players, which is the core and foundation of it. So I think when it comes to an album like this, they really want to pay testament to that, as well as kind of Joe giving her own spin on it, you know, and her own presentation of all of them influences. So yeah, I mean, for me personally, I like a blues player similar to Joe to have a lot of expression. I like a lot of, you know, I want to hear their character come through the music, you know, like should we say Philip Say's, Gary Clark Jr., Stevie Ray, you know, it's these kind of players where you can kind of hear them straight away. And Gary Moore, one of my favourite blues players, you know, probably classed as a more modern one, but to hear Gary Moore play blues is just everything for me, you know. Absolute class. Yeah. So looking forward to the album coming out, and I think it's cool. I think it's a nice celebration of everything that the three of them are all, you know, love so much.
Feels very like collaborative.
Yes,
that was the vibe I got from the interview. She talks very positively about everybody that's been involved, and you can hear all about that now.
So we're here with Joanne Shaw Taylor. Thank you for joining us, Joanne.
Thank you for having me, love.
So one thing that we like to do is we like to go like back to the origins of a musician. So with that in mind, when can you like first remember hearing music and thinking like, this is what I want to do?
Well, firstly, I like the term origins. That makes me sound far more exotic, like far more interesting than it probably is. To be honest, my dad and my brother play guitar, so it was just one of those houses where, you know, I was just absolutely surrounded by it on a day-to-day basis. So I always wanted to play guitar, but the main sort of, event was really, I saw a Stevie Ray Vaughan DVD and begged my dad for a Stratocaster and kind of just completely immersed myself into the world of Texas blues. So that was the moment that my life went awry, basically.
Was your dad and your brother very much into that same sort of sound, that Texas blues thing?
Mixed. My dad was super into blues. He played guitar, but he also played harmonica. So he's quite into like older country blues, Big Bill Broonzy and, you know, Sonny Terry and Brownie McGee. My brother, unfortunately, is a like shred master. A lot of Malmsteen, Vi, Satriani, Iron Maiden. So there was just, you know, a lot of different music coming at you from just a lot of obnoxiously loud guitar, basically.
So it sounds like a good education.
It was one way of growing up.
So your debut album, White Sugar, came back out in 2009. Obviously, we spoke off air about, because we were obviously based in Notts, about my early gigs, particularly at the Running Horse in Notts. What was the moment for you, Joanne, kind of when you were on that journey and you thought, this is it, this is kind of who I want to be, and this is what I'm going to put all of my energy into?
I think it was from the moment I saw that DVD, really. Because, I mean, I've been playing guitar, I've been playing classical guitar at school, and I'd done quite well at it. And my teacher had been fantastic, and he got me into the Birmingham Youth Ensemble. I passed an audition, so I was doing shows with them. So I knew I could play guitar. I knew I enjoyed playing guitar, but, you know, the classical music world was not for me, sadly. I'm sure they're still grieving that loss to this day. Which is why when I found blues, it was so much more appealing to me, because it was just about, I mean, there's no rules in blues, you know, it's all about injecting your own personality into the guitar playing and singing. So there was just a lot more freedom there. So I think for me, that was that sort of pivotal moment of, oh, okay, figured this out. This is absolutely what I want to do. I want to be a cowboy. I want to live in Texas. You know, I want a peacock tattoo on my chest. I want to be Stevie Ray Vaughan. And yeah, I remember having a conversation with my brother with it in a McDonald's car park. I said, I'm going to be Stevie Ray Vaughan. He said, well, you'll have to practice 14 hours a day. And I went, fine, that's what I'll do. So it became a bit of a competition thing, I think, with my brother. But yeah, definitely, it was pretty much immediate that I wanted to do it.
When was the moment when you felt that change? Because I mean, we've all been on that journey, and you'll play certain gigs and you think, God, this is happening now. Like this is. Was there any moment when you could feel that sudden surge in your popularity?
It's been such a long road. So I mean, I got signed by Dave Stewart when I was 15. So that certainly was a moment of like, oh well, for a start, I don't have to go to school anymore. So that was brilliant. You know, and it's like finally I can, you know, just focus on my music. And not GCSE Spanish. But then that failed after 2-3 years, you know, and then something else came along. So it was such a slow progression of sort of having little opportunities that, you know, the Dave Stewart thing, I didn't end up making an album, but it did introduce me to touring in Europe, you know, and get me some agents out there. And so it was just little baby steps, to be honest, over the course of 20 years. So by the time you sort of turn around now, you know, and kind of realize I've managed to build, I think, a good career. It's just been such a slow process for me, to be honest.
So the upcoming album, the Blues album, is out September 17th. Of course, it's a covers album, and it's produced and recorded by Joe Bonamassa. How did this collaboration come about?
Quite organically. I mean, Joe's been my best friend now for about, I think, 12 years. We met at a blues gig. We were playing a festival in Norway together and hit it off. And, you know, we're very similar. We're both obviously guitar players that started at a very young age and have had similar sort of careers, paths. You know, he used to play the Running Horse. So, you know, we had a lot to talk about. And yeah, we were just talking. To be honest, it was COVID. You know, I mean, the one benefit was that all musicians were off the road. And also it meant that, you know, we had more free time to kind of have a bit more social time for once, as opposed to being ships in the night. So I was talking to Joe on Zoom most Friday nights over, you know, a bottle of wine, and just said I had this idea for an album. You know, I wanted to do a blues covers album, and he started giving me pointers on it and sending me songs to think about. And So eventually I just asked him if he wanted to produce it. You know, he's been producing albums and he was already kind of producing this in a way. So it made sense. And yeah, fortunately he said yes.
That's it. And in terms of, like you say, them conversations over a bottle of red wine over Zoom, what came into that final kind of track listing for you? Did Joe kind of have a lot of input? Did you have certain songs in your mind already before, like you say, you had that idea of a covers album in your head?
Yeah, I think I'd picked about half an album at that point, about 5 or 6 songs, most of which ended up on the album. Cool. So yeah, Joe was sort of 50-50, and Josh, who he co-produced it with, Josh Smith, had some suggestions. So it definitely, you know, Joe definitely had an input, and it definitely would have been a different album had I used a different producer. And particularly as a lot of the songs he picked, he really wanted to push me as a vocalist and have that be quite the focal point, to be honest, of the album, was me as a singer as opposed to a guitarist. So that was quite a big, you know, had a big impact on the album, I think.
Is there like a particular favourite for you off the album? Anything that you're kind of really looking forward to playing live as well?
I think I've got 2 favourites. I think the new single, Let Me Down Easy, is one of my favourites. Big ballad. And just a really good soul song. It's a little Milton song. And I just love, Joe suggested it actually, and I just love the lyric and thought it could be, you know, really a tough one to sing, but you know, if we could get it right, it would work really well. And I think that's going to be good live, if I can remember how to sing and get back on the road after 18 months sabbatical. And the other one is a Little Richard ballad that's been one of my favourite songs for a long time, because I love Little Richard. But he never did many ballads, so it was quite an interesting one to be able to cut.
Cool. In terms of the set list, when you go back on the tour, Joe, like, how will you work it with the album? You know, obviously you've got kind of quite a wealth of material at this point. Will you focus mainly on this covers album, or will you kind of mix it in with the songs that people expect you to be playing?
Yeah, I always like to mix it in. So usually I think sort of half the album, 4 or 5 songs. I think that's enough for me. You know, it's enough to kind of, you can focus on the new album in the set, but also there's the sort of old favourites. Because I just feel like everyone hates going to see that band that they're looking forward to seeing, and they think, oh, well, I hope they play old songs and not just the new album that I haven't really listened to yet. You know, you end up at an AC/DC gig not knowing any of the songs. So yeah, I think there's kind of a fine line of, you know, mixing it in. And it's also fun for me to see, because every album I try and make slightly different. So it's fun to me to take the new stuff and see how it meshes with the old stuff and how much of a challenge it is, you know?
Cool. With that in mind, I mean, obviously, you've got your gear that you've recorded with this album. I remember watching Rig Rundown with you, and you had kind of a dual amp setup, and you had the 2 tube screamers, which was quite interesting. How did you work it in the studio? Did you go in with a rig already in your mind, or are you quite open minded and use bits of Joe's gear? Yeah,
I mean, I was quite open minded, to be honest. I just left that responsibility to Joe.
Wow.
You know, see, he's becoming, you know, getting to be known for a producer now, but you know, he also kind of knows a bit about guitar playing, I'm told, and also has a bit of a collection. So one thing we were both adamant about is that we were going to find a guitar tone for me, and we would keep that across the entire album. We wouldn't change it.
Yeah.
Because that's how, you know, most traditional blues guitarists would have done it back in the day, and we wanted quite an old school vibe to it. So yeah, we used a 62 Fender Deluxe, I believe, blended in with a Howard Dumble overdrive, both of which are Joe's. I'm not sure if he's going to lend me them to go out on the road. I'm going to guess it's a resounding no. They both cost more than my house. So I don't think he's going to trust me with that. But yeah, I keep things pretty simple anyway. The 2 tube screamers was because one's a overdrive, and then the second I keep is a clean boost.
Cool. Nice. So, I like your open-mindedness. I suppose that's the beauty of going in and doing something like what you've done with the blues album, is that you can go in there and it's kind of like, even though it's your album and it's a reflection of you kind of, you know, nodding the hat to these songs, and you can kind of, you know, dive into different bits of gear rather than it being your core sound. Do you get what I mean? Like, if I was going to record an album with the band, I'd kind of want to go in there, you know, with my core amp sound, because that's kind of my character, you know, whereas if it was covers, you can kind of be a bit more open-minded, I imagine.
Yeah, and I think also you've got to be slightly open-minded with it, because I think the worst thing you can do, particularly working with a producer, unless you're producing it yourself, is you have to understand that you're not making a Joanne Shaw Taylor album. You're making the Joanne Shaw Taylor album that Joe Bonamassa wants to make. You know, and that's what I've hired him to do. So if I fight him on this, we're just going to end up with an album that both of us don't like and have a miserable experience making it.
It's a really good point.
Kind of every producer is, you know, I said to Joe, you have to give me one thing where if I say absolutely no, I don't want this song, or absolutely want this song, I'll go with you. Everything else is fine, but you know, if I say no, I really mean it. And you hope that if you give on everything else, that eventually they'll let you have that, you know, one little thing that means so much to you. I'm not sure if he did or not. I can't remember. But it was a nice idea.
It's good to set that stall out pretty early as well, because then you've got that card in your back pocket if you need.
Yeah, I think he stopped answering emails conveniently around the time I decided. But hey ho.
What about going out on the road? Do you have the rig in your mind for what you'll take out on the road? Will it be similar to what you've took out before?
Yeah, I mean, I've always been, you know, I've got my main guitar Junior that's a 66 Esquire, pardon me. I usually take a Les Paul just because sometimes you need a Les Paul sound and you can't get that from a Telecaster. Sorry, Leo Fender, but you can't. And then amps, I'm always a clean Fender girl. You know, I keep things very simple. I've never been particularly interested in pedals. I just think it's one more thing to have to worry about breaking on the road. You know, just kind of plug into the amp. You know, there's enough to think about between what's the lyric? Oh my God, the guitar solo is coming up. Do I need to turn up? Well, you know, should I move? Should I look interesting? It's, you know, there's enough going on in your head that, you know, I don't want to overcomplicate it any more than it's already been complicated for me.
That's cool. Of course, as well as recording with Joe, you've worked with Josh Smith for this album. From a producer's role, what elements did they both bring to yourself?
You know, they work really well together. And obviously I knew Joe very well. I'd met Josh through Joe a few times, and, you know, he's got his own career that's, you know, he's very well respected guitarist, so I knew of him as well. So I was quite curious to see how they work together. And Joe, I think they really complemented each other well, and it worked really well for me in that Joe was in the control room, sort of being the producer, but it was really nice to have Josh producing from in the room. So he was playing rhythm guitar live next to me. So he kind of worked as an MD of the band really as well, because I can't read music, I can't read charts, you know, which all the guys were going off. So Josh was very fundamental in leading the band more than I could, which took the pressure off me. Then I could just sit there and sort of sing and worry about the solo and, you know, just my performance. So it really worked well for me having both, you know, the best of kind of both worlds really. And he kept Joe out the live room as well, which was very beneficial for my peace of mind and mental health.
That's a really good, interesting insight, because I imagined it in my head kind of with the two of them sat in the mixing room, and the problem with that is then you've got kind of two different opinions and two different energies kind of clashing a little bit. And as you said, they've kind of worked together before and probably ironed that out already, you know, before working with yourself. Yeah,
and I think, you know, they're both very different temperaments as well. You know, Josh is this is just going to sound like a very negative thing towards Joe, and I don't mean like that. Josh is very laid back.
Yeah, he comes across like that.
Yeah, and I think he had more input in the songs than I was probably let on to know, because he is quite quiet. And I think, you know, he was definitely sending songs to Joe that then Joe would send to me. You know, so he's happy. I think he kind of takes more of a back seat, but is, you know, certainly is far more involved than his quiet personality lets you know.
Cool. I mean, so this is kind of, I mean, we've tried to top things up kind of with EPs and stuff being about your ninth release. Apologies if that's kind of missing different bits. One of the things we like to chat to artists about is kind of the hypothetical of where you see yourself sort of in 10 years time, you know, or where you'd want to be, Joe. You know, you've kind of, as you say, it's been a long journey, but I mean, working with Joe and Josh in this awesome album feels like the ultimate climactic point of all that hard work. But where would you personally want to be in sort of that amount of time?
You know, I don't ever think too much about that, really. I think my main goals are just to, you know, when I look back, that I've got a career that I've, you know, been proud of, really, and a bulk of work that's, you know, I can be proud of, which also takes some of the pressure off, you know, in that some people, when they release an album, particularly I have conversations with younger artists that are so stressed about releasing an album and how it's going to, you know, be received, that I just think, well, if I've done the best job I can do and I really believe in it and think it's good, it's going to do whatever it's meant to do. And, you know, when I look back, I know not every album's going to be everyone's favourite, but hopefully there's a bulk of work there and a bulk of touring that was successful. And then, to be honest, just to enjoy it, you know, else, you know, I should have gone to university and picked something that paid more handsomely than this does and had a normal life. And, you know, so if I can look back and have had an interesting life and met cool people, and, you know, I think that's all I really kind of am hopeful for. Good health.
I think that's cool. I think if that's all that you're hoping to achieve from it, then I think it's you end up with a much more healthier outcome for yourself long term, definitely.
Yeah, I think so. You know, I mean, at the end of the day, I decided to do this because I wanted to do something I love to do for a living, which, you know, a lot of people aren't fortunate about. It's a bizarre way to earn a living, basically having people clap you every night. So I think you've got to keep a bit of perspective as to, you know, else that's how egos get formed. You know, it's a bit of a silly thing I do for a living. I enjoy it. I hope people enjoy it. That's it. You know.
No, I think that's really cool. And for those that want to come out and clap you every night, what gigs have you got planned coming up?
We've got a US tour starting in 5 weeks in Detroit, September 15th. We go for a month, and then all being well, I will be in the UK November 1st. I think we kick off for rearranged tour that was March 2020 when that whole thing happened.
Yeah, we heard about that.
That whole world shutting down thing. So yeah, I've got some dates coming up.
Fantastic.
Now, one thing that we like to finish the show on is it's a bit of a hypothetical question.
Oh, God.
If you could tour with one band or musician from the past and one from the present, who would they be?
Then use the running horse, just to get that out there.
Actually, that would be fun, though. If I think about highlights of my career, would be to go back to those really early days, you know, where I think it was the running horse I played where 3 people turned up and it was only like a pound in. I was like 14 and my dad made me go around and give them all their £1 back and thank them for coming. So he bought me like fish and chips on the way home, and it was, you know, he's like, oh, you don't have to go to school tomorrow, you can have a lie-in. I mean, that was like the best day of, you know, my life. It just was so awesome that 3 people were there. So I think I would go back and do a gig like that if I had to go back to a past gig, go back to the Robin or the Running Horse. If I could tour with any band now, oh God, that's a tough one. Can I pick the Hollywood Vampires just because Johnny Depp's hot?
Yes,
Joe. You know,
it's your gig.
We'll sort it.
I'll go hang out with Captain Jack Sparrow if that's all right. It's been a tough year. I think that'd cheer me up.
Cool. So we'll have that as your modern band, and kind of you said about, you know, kind of looking back on previous things. But is there any kind of an older band, sort of like that you particularly love to gig with?
One person I never got to see, and I messed up. I wish I could have made it happen. Was Prince. I would have loved to have seen Prince. I would have loved to work with Prince. And it's funny, I worked with his saxophone player, Candy Dolfer, for a few years. So she would text me and let me know, you know, he always did a gig after his gig, like a private show. And she'd always text me if she was in London, let me know. But I'd always be on the road in America or something. So I just always missed him. But yeah, I'd love to have seen that up close, you know, him, all those songs, the guitar playing, doing the splits 20 times in a row. You know, he just was the ultimate performer for me.
Cool. So the hypothetical gig at the Running Horse in Nottingham. It's going to be.
So I'm going to go to the Running Horse, then I'm going to go see Prince, then I'm going to go hang out with Johnny Depp.
Right. Okay. Yeah. We'll get back to you. We'll get on the phone.
Yeah.
And the Prince might be hard work.
That one might be a bit difficult, but
Depp might be able to work.
I think so.
Yeah. You can go for a curry down the road from the Running Horse. Johnny Depp. If
you can get me a curry in Nottingham with Johnny Depp, I will be a very happy lady.
Sorted. Right,
I'm not a curry in Nottingham at this point.
Cool. As Joe said, the Blues album is out September 17th through KTBA Records. You can order that directly from ktbarecords.com. As Joe said as well, she'll be touring the UK in November, and you can order tickets directly from joanneshawtaylor.com. Joe, thanks ever so much for chatting to us, dude.
Oh, you're welcome.
Really enjoyed it. Yes, that was Joanne Shaw Taylor. Enjoyed that, man. I thought Joe was great.
Yes. really kind of upbeat and positive and enthusiastic.
Yes, yeah, 100%. And even after that time, you know, yes
to all.
Yes. Even after that time, like you say, she's been knocking about. I love the fact we had that bit before, me including an interview around the running horse in Nottingham. You know, from Nottingham, I've played the running horse loads of times, and you know, it's still kind of a venue where a lot of bands have their first gigs. And the fact she's been doing it since she was 14, you can tell she's. But the fact that she's still got that passion and that excitement and that love for a genre that's overall kind of, you know, it's even when you've got the love for it, it's something where you can end up getting a bit stuck in the motions with. You know, I don't get that feeling with her at all. I feel like she's constantly moving forward and constantly excited about where she's going.
I mean, the big thing that I took away from it was when we spoke about the where do you want to be in 10 years, and it was pretty much like as long as I'm doing what I love, playing guitar, making music, and surrounded by people that, you know, I get on with, I'm winning, basically, isn't it? It was like she talked about you know, my job is I get clapped at in the evening. And it's true, isn't it? Like you know, you play your gig, you get applauded, and people say you're great. I mean, what a job! You know, I mean, I wish I could do that job. You know, and she's
you make
right,
me clap you after each.
We have to.
If I don't clap, he doesn't let me leave you.
He's contractually obliged. You know?
Indeed, but I'd always do clap. You know, which is important. But yeah, I mean, she kind of said as well that thing, as wonderful as it is, can you know, when you have it over and over again, it can get quite, you know, difficult. And I like the fact she had that clarity on that and that focus on what she does want to achieve. There's no ego there. It's just purely about creative expression and her own sense of happiness and pride, you know. And I think a lot of people can take a lot of inspiration from that, definitely. Particularly young musicians, you know, like she said, for someone like myself, you know, when we make a record, with a lot of things we're thinking about, you know. And the fact she's reached a point in her career where she feels she can just do what she wants, and she can be proud of it because it's a stamp on who she is at that point in her career. You know, albums are a bit like tattoos. Yeah. You know, I've got tattoos I got when I was 18 that I definitely wouldn't get now. There's still a representation of who I was at that point, you know, and a stamp of that. And I think albums are the same, and I think similar to tattoos, the less regret you can have of that, the better, because it's still part of your journey and part of your timeline.
Yes, that was Joanne Shaw Taylor. That is it for this week. If you like what we're doing, you can subscribe, of course, and keep up to date with everything we've got going on. We do things like Extra Vibes, which centers around, well, it can be any topic, so that could be anything. And then of course we also have the podcast out every Saturday from 10 a.m. and if you want to find out what guest we have, you can like us on Facebook, and every Wednesday from 10 a.m. yes, we reveal who said guest is.
It's been a while since I've done it every Wednesday, so I just wanted to get that in there. I enjoy repeating that after Mr. Vasey, but he's not wrong. He's not a liar.
No.
If you do follow us on Facebook, you can see who we go. And if you're watching on YouTube, our lovely faces, make sure you go down, click the bell, and then you never miss an episode of Beyond the Vibe. And that supports us, lets us know that you're enjoying what we're doing. Make sure you like the video as well. If you dislike it, you can if you want, but we'll hunt you down and throw you in Newark Canal. So it's completely up to you. But we appreciate you being here and supporting what we're doing. And yeah, join the vibe.
Yes, and we will see you next week.